Hi guys, I'm Chris,
And I'm Mike.
and welcome back to No Limits, a Mitch Rapp podcast. So how you doing this week, Mike?
Chris, I'm doing great. I'm feeling fine. But the big questions, how are you feeling? You're back with us. It was terrible being solo last week without you.
Well, I listened to your solo. You did great. Good job. Good job by you, man. Yeah, I'm back. I was sick, or I'm still am sick a little bit, but I'm good enough to do this pod. Need to get it out there. Need to get it to the people. They want it. But it's sad to say that I unfortunately came down with COVID. Me and my entire family, and my parents, who I'm currently living with in this transition period between grad school and starting a new job. So, yeah, it sucks. Luckily, I'm not seriously, sick. Have minor symptoms. But yeah, my parents and wife not so much. So hopefully, I just can't. We don't really get into this stuff in this pod. But
Sure.
all I can say is, wear a mask, be safe, social distance. I don't know where this came from, but yeah, I can't say anything more. This sucks, and I feel for all the people that have to go through it. And so yeah, but I'm back, and hopefully we all get better quickly.
Yeah. Well, welcome back. You've been in my prayers and my family's prayers, and a lot of listeners, they gave you some get well wishes on the social media platforms. So
I know, it was nice to see that. So
all right, glad you're here talking with me tonight.
yes.
Speaking of our wonderful listeners, we want to do a little something for them as our January giveaway. We are going to open up this giveaway to all of our listeners, and I am going to give away one of my 2 copies of Consent to Kill, autographed copies of Consent to Kill.
Very nice.
Yeah, and we like doing special things for our patrons, but we love all of our listeners. So, to sign up, simply go to our website, mitchrappod.com, and you will see a sign up for No Limits email updates. We are going to include in the giveaway everybody who signs up for the No Limits email updates through our website. And once you're registered, you will get occasional emails from us with updates on all things Mitch Rapp Pod. We promise not to bombard your inbox, just maybe once a week or even less frequent than that. But all you got to do to be entered in the giveaway, an autographed copy of Consent to Kill, is go to mitchrappod.com, click the sign up for No Limits email updates button, and get enrolled.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll announce that at the end of January, so just a couple of weeks from now.
Sweet. And while we're here, I gotta give another shout out to a listener, Sherry F., one of our special operator, right?
Yes.
She just posted on social media that she got one of our Mitch Rapp Pod hoodies, a black one. Looks pretty sick. So if any of you are interested in getting some Mitch Rapp Pod merchandise, a t-shirt or a hoodie with our logo on it, you can just head on over to our website, mitchrappod.com, and hit the little Teespring button and order yourself one. It's pretty sick, and help out the pod a little bit. So,
all right. Hey, to transition into our book, because we are covering the 6th book in the Mitch Rapp saga and Vince's 7th book overall, Consent to Kill, one last listener shout out. We follow Stephen Hendricks. This guy is awesome on Facebook. If you don't follow him, search him up. He posts thriller reviews with drink pairings. And some of these are spot on. He's pumping out multiple reviews each week of thriller books, and each one's got a bottle right next to it.
Where does he find the time? I don't know where he gets all the time to do this.
Yeah, I asked him today, I was like, are you reading these as you post? Because he's got 2, 3 a week. I just see him all the time. But it's kind of cool. He matches the covers with the drink label, so it's like a visual matchup. But
that's cool.
That's cool. I also get the sense of like the storylines and plot lines kind of gel with whether it's an intense drink, a laid back drink, something easy to digest. And I bring this up because he posted Consent to Kill, our book for today. So I told him I'd give him a shout out. Yeah, he went with the Crown Royal Vanilla. So something nice and smooth for our smooth operator here. Mitch Rapp getting his revenge. So
It's very delicious. I love the Crown Royal vanilla. It's very, very nice.
I don't think I had the vanilla ever.
That and the peach. The peach is hard to find, but the peach is
Ooh.
delicious too.
Ooh.
Maybe do a little peach vanilla.
Look at
Peaches
that.
and cream. There you go.
Look at that. All right. Well, what do you think? Let's get into the book.
All right, let's do it. So on Goodreads, we like to kick it off with your Goodreads metric. So Consent to Kill has a Goodreads score of 4.36, which I think besides, if I just pull up our little book orders thing, besides Total Power, it has the highest Vince Flynn Goodreads score. It's tied with Kyle Mills' Lethal Agent, although we haven't looked at any of the other ones, all the ones that we've read to date, right? And the summary goes like this. So, for years, Mitch Rapp's bold actions have saved the lives of countless Americans. He has killed with impunity, tortured to avert disaster, and shown he will do whatever it takes to prevent terrorists from fulfilling their bloody wishes. His battle for peace and freedom have made him a hero to many and an enemy to countless more. In the tangled, duplicitous world of espionage, there are those, even among America's allies, who want to see Mitch Rapp eliminated. They have decided the time has come. Now, the powerful father of a dead terrorist demands vengeance in its simplest form, an eye for an eye, and Rapp instantly becomes the target of an international conspiracy. This time, he must use all of his vigilance and determination to save himself before he can turn his fury on those who have dared to betray him. I think that's probably my favorite Goodreads summary so far.
Yeah. That's rather eloquent. Some of the word choice there is
very good.
A little higher than what we've seen in the other ones.
Very
a little
good.
more erudite.
Yeah.
For sure. Duplicitous. Impunity.
Hung me up there a little bit.
Well, Chris, you know what else has words composed in a very pleasant format? A limerick.
Yeah, limerick. I was going to say a limerick.
And I guess one could say my thoughts on this book are best summed up in not the form of a single limerick or a double limerick, but Consent to Kill deserved a triple limerick.
Wow.
So here we go.
Give it to us.
There once was an assassin with a task. To hunt Mitch Rapp, the Goulds were asked. If the Saudis pay, a bell will play, and all responsible will be unmasked. An act of love saves them in the end, but Louis, forever condemned. A baby is born, another forlorn, and his memory and spirit transcend. The landmark book in the Rapp series, which fans and readers forever hold dearly. Flynn takes some risks, and pacing so crisp, an unexpected ending 'tis clearly.
Pretty good, man.
There it is.
You're a poet. You are a poet.
I banged this one out in like 15 minutes right before we started, actually. When you feel inspired? You just feel inspired sometimes.
You just feel it. You keep going. I can't stop with one. Can't stop with two. I got to give you three. This is sick.
Hey, I think this book earned it. Vince doing something special here for us. So.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. I think we're going to enjoy talking together about this book and really getting down dirty with some of the storylines. And, as you said in your limerick, this is definitely a fan favorite. And we've talked to some listeners, and they've all stated that this is one of their favorites. So, and I think it really, and Kyle as well. Yeah. So, really shows itself, especially in this first half. So yeah, let's just get into the storyline a little bit. What do you say?
Yeah, let's do it. We have a pretty cool prelude to open. That's one of the treats we always get with a Vince Flynn book. Some nice little short, crisp introduction which catches your attention. And what a line, we open with here. Quote, "To kill a man is a relatively easy thing, especially the average unsuspecting man. To kill a man like Mitch Rapp, however, would be an entirely different matter. It would take a great deal of planning and a very talented assassin, or more likely, a team, who were either brave enough or crazy enough to accept the job. In fact, any sane man by definition would have the sense to walk away."
Yeah, I was gonna say you could add in stupid enough.
Stupid enough, yeah. Louis can't walk away, though.
No, he cannot.
He cannot walk away.
Yeah, like that prelude really, it sets you up for this. Obviously, foreshadowing someone is going to be trying to kill Mitch Rapp, right? And then we have that sets the stage, and then we immediately jump into this discussion that Rapp is going to have with Irene, which is going to set up in the first couple chapters. This pretty crazy action, and we see Mitch Rapp right off the gun, showing his skills to take down this, radicalized cleric in Canada. So I wanted to just, what did you think of that scene in Canada? The description of Rapp decides he has to be the one on the ground. He's not going to let anyone. Again, typical Rapp fashion. He has to be the one to take out the guy, which has come to bite him in the ass in the past. But this time, it doesn't, and he succeeds. But I don't know. I just enjoy the descriptions of how right before he's about to kill the guy, he's like rocking back and forth on his feet, getting ready.
Yep.
Explaining also like all the things that Coleman team have done to get to surveil this guy, and that they know it. It really shows the expertise of him and his team. We're sort of just thrown right into this world again.
Yeah. Well, I like that last point you brought up. I feel like this is a seamless transition from Memorial Day, which I like. I like when the books are connected and have these like mini arcs that they cover.
Right.
Because Memorial Day ended with Kennedy saying, Rapp, this is your chance. Like, if ever you were going to be given a green light, consent to take care of these terrorists, it's right now because they nearly hit us. And that scene leads right into it. He's got a list. This cleric in Montreal has been spreading terror, has been funding terror out of his mosque, and Rapp's going to move down his list. He's going to pick him off. And I love that we jump right into that action. But it's also embedded in a bigger story. So Kennedy is approving this individual mission, but she's also approving Rapp to do kind of a reorg. Now that he works at the CIA, not just as an operative on the ground, he also is somewhat of an administrator, which sounds weird because Rapp doesn't like that. But here in this book, he's excited to kind of reorg and shake up the line of command because he wants more latitude, and he knows after this almost, attack in DC, he can get that approval. And
Right.
So this scene, I think, just fits that narrative. And then it fits where Rapp goes next, which is taking his notes to expand the Orion team to the Senate Intelligence Committee. Because he's going to meet with a couple of very powerful senators who aren't often pro-intelligence or pro-CIA,
Right. Yeah.
but he knows now he can get them, and they'll be on his team this time.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we saw this personally after 9/11 and after various events where there's this crackdown. And so in the Rapp universe, there was just, he stopped not one, but two nuclear weapons from, one very close from being exploded in the Capitol building, right? Or in the capital city. And so he needs to take advantage of the leverage that he has. They're scared because they almost died, right? And
Yeah.
so he sees this, he takes this meeting. And so this is like our second, sort of theme here, this whole national intelligence shakeup that's going to play heavily in the second half of the book with, we have this new character that we're introduced to with the DNI, Ross. Essentially, there's this cabinet position where they're going to oversee in order to tie together all of the intelligence agencies. And so you have these, as you mentioned, these two senators who they want to see the CIA, FBI, and NSA, whatever, work better. They think that they're not doing their job. And so he takes this meeting. They agree, like he takes this meeting and he doesn't quite know what they're going to do. And Kennedy knows what they want, but purposely doesn't tell Rapp anything about the meeting because he wants to get his true, sort of take on the meeting. And I actually like the character of Hartsburg, who they have this scene where we can just mention it now, where they meet in the Hawk and Dove, And he's sitting there reading
84.
1984.
Or Rapp kicks his
And-
chair or something.
Yeah. And he's like, I didn't take you as a 1984 guy. I took you more as a Animal Farm kind of guy.
Yep.
And it's this whole play on like, this guy is a, a Democrat, a socialist, whatever you want to call him, like,
Yeah.
or, left leaning. Rapp is more nationalistic, right? And so these two people that don't normally interact with each other, but see this common ground and are willing to sort of put their political views aside because they see a need to have this new, reorg in the Orion team.
Yeah. And in this scene at this bar, which I definitely want to bring up in a second, there's this interesting conversation, and it's like they're kind of on the same page, even though Vince is showing they're clearly ideologically on different sides of the political spectrum, like you said, and they feel intimidated by Rapp. But Senator Hartsburg is willing to kind of reach out and cross the aisle. He says, quote, "There isn't a person on Capitol Hill who doesn't get a little nervous around you." But we couldn't agree more. And so he's like, and Rapp is like, you agree with what I want to do and expand the Orion team? And Senator Hartsburg does say, we have to hit them before they hit us. And, I guess after trauma of 2 nuclear weapons in your city, very close to detonation, even both sides of the political spectrum are going to get behind our counterterrorism, operations and intelligence. So, and all of this is going down at a bar, both beloved to you and I and our alma mater, Catholic University, the freaking Hawk and Dove. Like, I get excited about DC things coming up, and you grew up here, so you too. But the Hawk and Dove, man, how many nights were we there in college every weekend? I mean, this scene takes place downstairs at the restaurant. We were always upstairs at that dance floor, if you can call it that.
Which was gonna cave in if you. I always thought like there was way too many people up there, and if they put on like, I don't know, what's that big song when we were in college? I'm like Black Eyed Peas. I got a feeling, everyone's jumping up and down, and I thought the dance floor was just gonna fall, But yeah, I actually went to the bar.
Getting in for $5 cover.
Yeah. And you weren't allowed to drink, my ass.
Okay. They don't give you a bracelet.
I actually went to there in high school because, I went to high school at Gonzaga, and not a far walk on, our lunch breaks. We would go there for lunch, and actually knew a guy who I went to high school with, and I think his uncle was part owner of the place. So, that Hawk and Dove has been in my life for a long time. I don't know if it's still there, or I haven't been there in a long time, but
I think it is. It might have closed for a while
and reopened.
I think it reopened before COVID. It closed for a while,
right.
But I believe it's reopened. And no doubt, it's on Capitol Hill, just southeast of the Capitol, there on Pennsylvania Avenue. You would definitely see congressmen, senators having lunch there for sure. Burger and fries type of place.
There's actually Vince describes the bar like sort of perfectly as this like divey of all dive bars, and he says that, and I don't know much about politics or like the inner workings of politics, but he says like the fact that a senator would normally be at this bar, like
not
like
Senate,
a congressman would be here, but not a senator.
Exactly.
And this big. Because the guy, he's a boxer, right? He's from New Jersey. He's like a boxer. Right. And he's sitting there reading 1984 on lunch, drinking, I think he said scotch or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah.
Great scene.
Love that stuff. Hey, the whole politicking goes a little south, though, like you mentioned with Director of National Intelligence Ross.
Yes.
Because he's a guy who's going to pull rank. He's going to be very pushy. He's going to have this bravado of a politician who's going to be your best friend, but secretly scheme behind your back. A typical Flynn villain, if you will.
Yeah.
And he kind of pulls his first jackass move. Bad idea. He does it in Kennedy's office. And even worse idea, he decides to pull these antics in front of Rapp and Coleman. Like, how naive a politician to think just because I got appointed to some new bureaucratic, political appointee job, I can do that. You're messing with the wrong people. And in this scene, he he looks at Coleman in the corner and he's like, I don't really know you. I'm the boss, so I know my staff. I know I got to rein Rapp in, keep him on a leash. I know I got to Kennedy. She's going to be tough to crack, but I got to kind of control her. There's this third factor, this man sitting on the couch, giving him a weird look. What did you think about Ross when he sees Coleman sitting on the couch there?
Oh, I love Coleman's response. Coleman was such a jackass in that scene. I think it was perfect. But the fact that you mentioned, not only does he pull this in front of the two, but then he decides like, oh, what the fuck are these two guys up to? I need to dig into them. And this leads down to the whole path of like investigating Scott's business, getting into his, the IRS on his ass, calling up the Pentagon, asking for his jacket,
his records,
his records. And luckily Flood is still in charge there, and he puts the kibosh on the whole thing. But
Rapp gets a call from Flood, and Flood's like, hey, Rapp, you might want to look into something because the Pentagon's getting a bunch of requests from this new guy, Ross. So unofficially, I'm kind of just telling you, like, you might want to protect your boy Coleman.
Yeah, exactly.
And Rapp's going to want to protect his friend.
No, but like, who does this guy think he is, like, trying to do this stuff?
Yeah.
And then this leads to an even funnier scene later on when they're actually in a room looking at this intelligence that they've gathered on Scott, his personnel file, his IRS records, whatever. And we see this inversion where, and Vince notes, like, Rapp purposely mimics this same thing that Ross just did in Kennedy's office in Langley, to the fact, like, even quoting him, like using the same phrases that he does to just make a point of like how rude this guy was.
And I love that. I was waiting in this book on a reread. I kind of forgot the minutia. I was like, so when does Rapp bust into like Capitol Hill and just go in and start laying it on thick to these different, congressmen and senators? Like, when's that going to happen? In this committee room? Instead, it's the director of national intelligence's office. So Rapp's going to pull his antics, and it's much more comical. Yeah, he's quoting exactly what Ross said and did in Kennedy's office, and doing it, I think, in front of, he's meeting with some high level people. It's like a really secure meeting in his office at the National Counterterrorism Center that we just saw play a big role in Memorial Day. And Rapp barges in. But what's really cool is how Rapp gets in. I like this minor character. I think it's the only scene we'll ever see him. Travis, I think Small was his name.
Right.
Who's not small at all. He's
not
a
small.
Huge dude. Rapp's like, this guy's a monster. And he's one of the security guards, or one of the guys protecting the National Security Counterterrorism Center. And Rapp is like playing buddy-buddy with him. And this guy's like, hey, thanks for what you did, stopping the attack. Like, that must have been crazy. And so this guy is going to let him up, and he walks him up. And I like this quote. When Rapp is playing it up chummy with this Travis, they both have, history of being the good guys. And they're talking about Ross, and Travis is giving him all this insider info on his boss. He's like, he's really a prick. He's pushy. He yells. He screams. No one would ever think this about him. And I, as a reader, was like, why is this guy giving all this info away? Vince writes, it's because this was one man who carried a gun talking to another man who carried a gun. There were certain things they could communicate without even speaking. Like, they were on the same page. And Travis lets him right up into his boss's office and barges in on a meeting.
That was great.
Good stuff.
So, in this whole Ross storyline, we also have this... Mitch pulls his antics. We find out from Kennedy, this is this minor chapter where Rapp needs to sort of back off a little bit. I guess it's not, we haven't quite gotten to like Kennedy's outrage yet. No, like, but there is, she tells him, like, because Rapp wants her to get Ross off of Scott Coleman, get the IRS off of Scott Coleman, right? And then there's this one line of like, oh, by the way, one of your buddies called from Saudi Arabia, another intelligence operative, who says that you're no fun anymore now that you're married, but there's a price on your head. And this is like where the foreshadowing of Rapp, like, well, it's not the first time he's had a price on his head, but now he knows that someone's up. And this is going to lay the seed for in the future of like, I need to go find that guy. Like, it's definitely the Saudis are involved, or someone over there is involved, and sort of, we're going to talk about it in the second half of the book, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that is going on in the background since I think one of the early chapters, like chapter 4, we do learn there is a scheme, some Saudi, palace intrigue going on among the royal family and the ruling class. And yeah, we get this hint that Rapp is now aware of that because there's a bounty placed on him. And he kind of shrugs it off in the beginning.
Yeah.
He's kind of like, everyone wants to kill me. Duh, that's my life.
But he does take it seriously enough to get Jack Warich put some security on Anna.
He agrees to that. Yep, I think Kennedy makes that call and gets security for the house in Maryland. But let's get to the Saudi thing, because this is really the start of a line that would eventually lead to an assassin being hired to take out Rapp. But there's some backstory to get there. So it begins with a man, Saeed, connected to the royal family. He's definitely a noble in Saudi Arabia.
I think he's the half brother of the crown prince.
Yeah, but what really motivates him here is the death of his son, Wahid. He knows that Rapp killed his son, who was a jihadi, in Afghanistan, and he tells the crown prince, Rashid, or Mohammed bin Rashid, right, the prince, the son of the king. He tells him, I need your help to kill Mitch Rapp. And Prince Mohammed is like, whoa, this is a big one. But of course, he hates the West. He hates Rapp. After the events that we just saw at the end of Executive Power, Prince Mohammed bin Rashid is kind of on the royal family shit list because he is supporting terrorism. The King Abdullah, has been getting closer and closer to the Americans ever since Rapp and Kennedy talked to him at the end of Executive Power, came clean, mentioned that they killed his brother because he was funding terrorism and corrupt. King Abdullah has been close to the Americans, and particularly Rapp. So Prince Mohammed sees this as a chance to sow divide in the royal family. And he kind of says to Saeed, I'm going to recommend somebody, but it can never get connected back to us.
Right.
And he recommends a German, who we're going to learn is Eric Abel. And he says, this is your man. He can hire somebody for you. Contact Abel.
Yeah, and in the first half of the book, we don't really get much more from the Saudis other than there's a minor meeting where Abel comes back and is discussing what he's going to do, and they essentially want to make sure that they tie up all the loose ends. Typical spy get someone to kill someone, get someone to kill someone, make sure you kill everyone on the way back. And then at the very end, he finds this other guy in Saudi Arabia. He's like, all right, we're gonna have to make sure we kill Eric. Sort of towards the end of where we are, we see that they come to America, of this whole sort of parade of Saudi royals, where there's this like little line that Vince puts in where like it's almost as if there's like the Olympics going on, like the amount of like economic stimulus that the Saudis coming to America do is like a minor like sporting event or something like that.
Their whole entourage is with them.
Yeah.
All these planes, yeah.
But we get this slight hint that Ross and Prince Mohammed are sort of working together, or like have this relationship with each other. And that's something that we're definitely going to discuss in the second half.
Yeah. And this director of national intelligence, Ross, is like, Irene, the Saudis are the key. He thinks having a friendlier relationship with the Saudis will improve our national security. Yet Irene and Rapp and everyone in the intelligence community knows, like, sure, with the right people in Saudi Arabia, like
Right.
King Abdullah, but this director Ross is so gung-ho on getting this Muhammad guy on his side, even though Muhammad, even the Saudis would say, is the bad apple.
Right.
He's the one in the royal family
funding terrorism.
terrorism. And Ross is just kind of like, let's play nice and get along with all of them, and doesn't dig into the minutia that the intelligence community actually, and the relationships they've actually been having, to kind of weed through the details and see who in the Saudi ruling family could be our ally and the king, and how can we get the successor of the king to, be pro-Western and not pro-terrorism. And Ross is going to blow that all up by giving Muhammad whatever he wants, and that's going to play a consequential role.
Right.
Yeah. How about Abel, though? Because Abel is hired now, right? He strikes a deal with Saeed. Initially, I think it's like 14 million. He gets him up to 20 million. Basically, there's a lot of negotiating on how much Rapp is worth. And these numbers keep getting inflated, which it just, in the reader's mind, just hammers home, this is going to be a tough job. This is a job nobody wants, and it's going to take a significant amount of money. So what do you think of this guy, Abel? He's former East German spy. He worked for the Stasi, secret police. He's not good enough to be a field operative, but because he's a little scrawnier, not as well skilled, physically, but he's got the brains. He can outwit, outfox, outsmart people. And so what do you think of his character being the one to hire an assassin?
I liked his character. So we get I don't know, the whole spectrum of assassins or spies in this novel, from Eric Abel to, we get there's a Russian who's a friend of Abel's, the Petrov, right?
KGB.
We get
former KGB.
We get our big players in Louis Gould and Claudia, and obviously Mitch Rapp. I think he seems to be a pretty capable spy, although not enough to outfox Louis, which is a big showdown that Louis sort of pulls over him and is almost like an audition to get him to actually hire him. But I thought he's an interesting character, right? He's this like you said, this scrawny guy who can't be a Mitch Rapp type, but his claim to fame was because he was so scrawny, he would purposely put himself out there for men, and get them caught for being homosexual.
Then he could blackmail them. That's right.
Yeah, blackmail them. So definitely you're a quintessential spy, or someone who I would imagine seeing on the Americans, or a Cold War type spy, right? So
yeah, he has the right contacts, because when he's selected, he's gotten rich off some dealings with OPEC and things. Yeah. He's been working with the oil markets to kind of take advantage there. He's gotten in bed with some Russian gangsters and mobsters. So, Russian organized crime is somebody he has connections to. So you feel like he's the right guy in terms of he's casting a wide net, or he's got a lot of tentacles in all these different areas. And one guy he relies on, you mentioned, was Petrov, a former KGB agent, and he butters him up. It's hey, come on out to my
Alpine
mountain
house,
my Alpine house, in the Swiss border and Austria. He brings cigars, he brings all the booze, and this is an older man, a very hardened KGB guy, and he breaks him down. And he says, "I need a name." They spend the night on the patio getting drunk, and he's like, "I need the best assassin in the world." And Petrov's like, "Hold on, I don't want to have a loose conversation here and just spill the beans if I don't know the details." And eventually Abel leads him to know this is a big target. I don't remember if he says it's Mitch Rapp.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't give that away, but he tells Petrov, this is going to be a tough job. I need the best of the best. And Petrov puts things together and goes, "So you need a killer to kill a killer."
I love that line.
It shows Petrov is in the game. He's right. A part of the game, even as an older man. I couldn't help but think of Hurley here a little bit, but yeah. He's smoking and he's drinking.
Yeah.
And Petrov also knows somebody has got big money in this, and he's trying to Abel is trying to sweet talk him and play him, and he's like, "Abel, I know you're being hired by the Saudis, so this is some dangerous shit." And Petrov says, "The Saudis think that God is on their side, and people who think God is on their side are capable of the most inhumane acts." I just love how Vince is using a somewhat minor character get to the deeper side of things, right. Realizing religious zealots motivated by extremism fuel the worst conflicts in history. And this one minor character is throwing that out as a line in the scene. There's some depth to that.
Well, what's interesting is not only with like you said, these minor characters, but with Abel, and I think even with Louis, we get these expositions on the history of Europe. There's this whole scene where Abel goes into the downfall of Germany and the rise of Russia, right? And also the downfall of Russia and how socialism doesn't work. And then we get Gould, who does this whole soliloquy in his head about how France is becoming the next, socialist state. And, there's this whole, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 paragraph segments where Vince sort of deep dives into the history of the state of the politics in Europe. And just on the reread, that really popped out to me. Like, he's sort of commentating on the time, and I wanted to talk to you. We can talk about it offline, but just like how correct he was in terms of seeing where France was going to go.
Yeah,
it really shows great writing. The fact that he can just, in these characters are just having these conversations in their heads or these ideas, but they're actually sort of, you can write whole papers on this stuff, or whole, PhDs on this stuff, and it really shows Vince's, outstanding writing here.
Yep. I appreciate that depth, just whether it's talking about post-World War II Europe and the trends that we're seeing, or even the Saudi ruling family knowing that it's not all good or not all bad. They all support terrorists, or, the king is our friend. It's not this extreme one or the other. And so I love the depth, both this scene and the other scenes.
I feel like it makes the book more chewable or more...
It's meaty. It's more meaty.
Yeah, meaty. Like, anyone can have a plot where, like, oh, this assassin's going to kill this assassin. But, like, throwing in those other little things, and they're like a paragraph. There's 3 paragraphs, a page, and it just makes the book that much better.
Like we've said before, a lot of this genre, I honestly pick up most of my thrillers when I need a break from heavy reading, because they are just this fun, badass, like, pew-pew. Vince gives us more than that. And he does it, and he does it so skillfully, working it into such an amazing story with the badass moments that you don't even realize it's that deep. But if you choose to dig into those between the lines kind of phrases and paragraphs and sentences and dialogue, you definitely get a deeper message. So
because if you're just reading it outright, it's just
read it just for fun. This is
his background, but it's just like, oh, this is a paragraph about the character's background, and then I just move on. I don't even care about it. But if you actually want to think about, oh, this is what Vince, in the way Vince writes it, he's actually commentating on what he thinks about this.
Yep.
So,
and here's another layer, because I want to get to the Goulds here.
Sure.
If the Goulds are as good as they say they are, would they want their name out there for some random German banker who works with organized crime in Russia to know them and have their contact information? A lot of thriller writers might be like, oh, the Saudis hire this German hires the assassin, move on. But no, we have this like coded, I have to go to this KGB man who is also very secretive, and we're both playing games back and forth, and I'm trying to butter him up. And then this guy Petrov, he says, I got a number to give you, or I have an email address to give you. It's a man and a woman. I don't know anything more than that, but they're the best of the best. Instead of just like, oh yeah, there's these people, call Louis, here's his number. It's like so much deeper to unveil how good the Goulds are, that they are so hidden by these layers.
Right. Yeah. So let's get into the Goulds a little bit.
Yeah.
We're first introduced to them with Louis. He's in London, and he's taking this hit on this banker. I forget the name that he's using an alias in the first chapter. We don't actually get his name, Louis Gould, until we get his backstory a little bit later.
They were Amanda and Henry.
Right. He takes out this banker by like putting the balloons like on a CCTV. Like, I love this scene. And there's scenes with Louis throughout the first half of this book where you see he's a really good assassin. He's a really good spy.
Yeah.
And reminds me of, again, like, just because one of my favorite spy writers, but Robert Ludlum and The Bourne Identity. And you see these various chapters where Louis is doing this crazy spy shit, and it's just, I don't know, I love that stuff. It's very cool to me. Reminds me of what's the third option, the scenes with Mitch and doing that stuff.
Yup. Another layer. So there's the balloons to block the security camera, but we get some backstory, which is true and was becoming more true at the time. London is the most surveilled city in the world. Highest closed circuit television cameras anywhere in the world. I bet back in, when was this book from?
2004,
Yeah,
2006.
early 2000s. That was probably like a really sexy thing that like cities were all of a sudden installing all these security cameras and you're watched wherever you go. Now that's
He says
commonplace.
it's some very Orwellian stuff,
And then we
Orwellian
already
city.
worked in 1984 into the other scenes.
Right.
All that's on your mind as Louis trying to operate in this urban environment covered in surveillance. And to add another layer, he's got the right partner for it. Someone whose skill set, in Rapp's life is going to play a major role to the current day with
Right.
total power. But Louis is working with a woman. They're on the comms throughout the whole mission. They've got their code words down. They've got their geography of the park. I think they're in Hyde Park, if I'm not mistaken, making this hit. And then Louis and her even like, there's a policeman, 200 yards this way, and Louis knows exactly what to do. I think he uses a newspaper to cover the gun, shoots the guy, keeps moving. The balloons are blocking the camera, and Louis walks away like, too easy.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're getting this psychology of Louis as someone who he's plateaued, or he thinks he's that good, and he's kind of like, I'm kind of sick of just doing these simple jobs. I need a challenge in my life. He's like, I'm ready to show I'm the best of the best, and doing things like this, killing some guy on a bench in London. He's like, when is the real work going to come? He's like, I need more. He's like, this is just another day in the park. And then he's talking about retiring. He's like, I just got to do a few more of these. Claudia wants to retire, but I'm not going to tell her. And we get this psychology of Louis holding things back from Claudia. She's taking these jobs and finishing them so they can retire and live comfortably. In the back of his mind, he's like, yeah, but I'm not telling her. I'll never stop. She thinks we're going to retire. Sure, I'll buy the house. Sure, whatever. But he's like, I'm going to keep going. He's the thrill of the hunt for him is so ingrained. He doesn't want to get bored with it. He wants to up his game.
It's planting the seed for showing how unstable he is. Because,
yes,
if you just read the first half of this novel, you don't really see, there's only minor hints to show that how freaking crazy. I mean, I guess any guy who would take on the Mitch Rapp assassin job would be crazy. But, he seems like a decently stable guy. But like you said, there's these minor little things that Vince puts in there to show you, oh, this guy's like fucking insane. Like he's a sociopath. He's crazy.
Yep. One other way his skills are showcased is when Abel is finally going to meet with Claudia to negotiate the contract. Claudia agrees to hear this man out, says, sounds like a lot of money's involved. She requests a meeting in person. And Abel is like, this is easy. I'll stay back. I'll do some reconnaissance. I'll check it out. I'll watch her from a distance. I'll make her wait. I'll make her nervous. And then I'll get the upper hand and get a cheap price. I'll come on in, get my killer, hire them at a cheap price. I'll be able to play these people. And while he's feeling so secure, watching Claudia from a distance, he feels something from behind.
Fine. And he like breathes on him, and this smell of coffee is later on when Louis breaks into Abel's house and takes his stuff out of his safe. Like he gets that same smell to know like, oh, this is the same guy. Yeah, like Eric thinks that, and he doubled back. He thought he wasn't being followed, and this just shows you how good Louis is. He wants to know who's emailing us for this big job. Why is like, you shouldn't make her wait anymore. Yeah, so that scene was great. And then they have a lot of demands, and they want to take the job. So Eric is, like you said, he's
spiraling out of control. He's losing control of this meeting.
He is freaked out because he just had a gun or a knife to his back. He wanted to have full control of everything. He's a very controlling guy, right? So he backs out.
Yeah.
And then this is when Louis is like, all right, well, we have to give him an audition. And then this then
show him our skills.
Breaks into his house, breaks into his safe. This then leads to Eric being like, all right, well, I got to hire these guys. I gotta hire them.
Yep. They scare him. Abel is like, who the hell are they to, outfox me and put me on defense? Like, I guess this is the right person for the job. There's a lot of back and forth about the money again.
Yeah.
It kind of sets up that Claudia's not really in it for the thrill. And the whole time she's kind of regretting, if the job is as big as it sounds, what they're doing. So she's like, we might as well try to get some more money out of him if we're taking this risk so we can live comfortably. Eventually, they have a conversation, and Abel finally lets him know it's Mitch Rapp. They're taken aback. They're like, whoa, this is the job you were talking about. It is as complicated as it is. And so they raise their fee. So there's a lot of money back and forth. They want more money because of this. Yeah. Abel at one point is willing to back out. He's like trying to get the upper hand. And he's like, I guess I don't need you. And he tries to back out. Claudia is going to keep the retainer. There's a $100,000 retainer. So there's a lot of negotiating. Do you think this is how hits work in this business? Like this kind of back and forth on the money? Meeting at a cafe, like I don't know. What do you think about all that?
I haven't. Well, there's like the whole scene or the whole line where it's like, all right, the retainer would be like 25 grand for an email, 50 grand for a dead drop, 100 grand for an in-person meeting. I could see like that happening, but this whole back and forth with like, I don't know. It was a little drawn out for me, and like I didn't really care about the money that much. Just like you could tell me it's $10 million and that's a lot of money, or $20 million, whatever it was, so.
Louis kind of like that too, because Claudia wants a little bit more of figuring out the money. And Louis like, I just want to be able to pull this off to show I hunted the hunter. I killed the killer. Like he wants it for those reasons. Once again, showing more of that sociopathic tendencies if he has to keep killing and getting better and proving that he's the best assassin in the world. In his own mind, he thinks so.
In that scene where he's in Eric's apartment or hotel, whatever it was, and that's when he tells him it's Mitch Rapp, and he takes it and walks out. He doesn't really show how freaked out he is to Eric, but then like when he walks around Paris that night, it's in France. He's like really like, oh shit, do I?
He's like, oh job? Man,
what could this mean? Like this is huge.
Yep.
Eventually, he decides to take the job, but he definitely contemplates it for some time.
He does. Yeah, those are some good internal dialogue going on there. There's something that we haven't addressed yet. That's going to lead us into the second part of the story. We get the pregnancy announcements.
We do.
I think it's literally one chapter after the other that we hear both of these. So Flynn is very clearly trying to parallel, I believe, these two stories in our mind by giving us, boom, one announcement, boom, the second announcement.
Yes.
But there's a lot of playful back and forth between Mitch and Anna throughout the book when we do see them together. And that's building up to this moment at the Capitol Grill when they're out on a date and Rapp's waiting for Anna and she's late. And Rapp is thinking about Anna's always late for things. At the house, he's talking about how she goes shopping all the time. She comes home with these bags. He's like, where were you? And,
the fashion terrorist, as he calls them.
She's a fashion terrorist. And at one point, she comes home and he asks her something like, how much money do you spend on shoes or handbags? And she snaps back in this playful way. Do I ever ask you how much money you spend on your guns? And in his mind, he's like, I use my guns more than once. You don't use your handbags or shoes more than once.
Well, this is all this. So, right. This is coming off Memorial Day where Anna wasn't even in it at all. She was mentioned a couple times. I don't even think she had any dialogue. So we're coming off of that. Then we get put into this novel where the first half we see a lot of Anna and or a decent amount of Anna, especially Anna with Mitch. And I think he even says that they were really hitting their stride. Like things were going a lot better. There was a lot more of this playful banter with, oh, did you kill anyone today, honey? Like, where the difference from the Anna back in, let's say, Transfer of Power, or Third Option, whatever, Separation of Power, where she's being naggy and being the typical reporter, like, oh, you can't do that, like this type of stuff. And they've seemed to have made the next step in the relationship, and Mitch is like, oh, this is great. He loves it. He's genuinely happy for this. He actually wanted to have him sooner, and she was the one who was like, obviously a career woman, wanted to wait a little bit, but now she's, obviously ready. Completely different way than how Louis takes the news.
Yeah.
Or at least he takes it in stride, but then we know deep down that he feels completely different about it.
Where Mitch is completely honest. He lets
Right.
like this is one of the few times you see Mitch almost softening up. He tells her like, "Honey, this is the best thing in the entire world. I'm so excited." And you could tell he genuinely means it, and you could tell Anna and his relationship are at a point where she knows he genuinely means it. She was a little nervous. Is he going to become all Mr. Assassin? I can't tell you things how I really feel. Say I'm excited, but kind of his mood changes a little. No, he's completely over the moon and open to her about how on board he is with this step in their relationship, which
Right.
Louis, he gets pretty nasty.
He does.
He gets pretty nasty. He straight up tells her, "This is your fault, the pregnancy." It's pretty vicious how he responds, come to think of it. He says, "This is your fault. Did you stop taking the pill?" What does he say exactly? It was something nasty.
Oh yeah, he blames her. Yeah, no, there's that whole scene where she's like having morning sickness, and
Yeah.
she blames that, she stopped taking the pill on purpose, and, just completely is mean to her.
Yeah. And it's just so crazy how that scene comes right after Mitch, who makes himself very vulnerable and open and telling Anna how much he loves her and he's excited for this. And then Louis is just kind of a jerk. He even walks out on her from the hotel room
Right.
at some point when they're fighting. So, yeah, completely different response. Shows a lot about these two different people. How one can be an assassin and still long for this family life and this normalcy and believe in relationships, where you see Louis is a jackass and he's kind of using Claudia in some sense. Maybe he loves her. It's his way of loving her, but it's a way that is so cold and so broken. And in his mind, he just wants to focus on the mission. He also sees it, as we're going to see in just a bit, jeopardizing the mission when he actually starts planning. And part of the plan is doing a little recon. So he bugs Anna's car, knowing she's a reporter. She works at the White House. He finds the parking garage. This was kind of cool. He goes around to some different parking attendants and asks if they've seen this car. I forget the reason he gives, but he's like, "Have you seen this car today?"
And we're looking for like a tax or someone.
That's right. He poses.
Taxes.
Yeah, he's like, we gotta find them. And he even pays off one of the parking attendants, like, "Hey, give me a call if you see," I think it's an Audi, right? An Audi A8 or something.
BMW.
Oh, that's the BMW. Rapp is driving the Audi in the other scene,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, and Anna drives the BMW. And one of the parking attendants is a hit and says, "Yeah, that car's down here." Bugs it, puts a tracker on it, and is able to follow Anna out to Maryland on the Chesapeake Bay, where the Rapp house is.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things that you mentioned, does he even love her? We get the whole backstory with him and Claudia, where he's almost like I feel like Claudia was a prize to him because she was this daughter, one of his commanding officers, and obviously they fell in love. The father didn't like it. She then, they break up. There's the whole scene in like a bar where like her friends make fun of Louis, and Louis like, beats the shit out of them. And so I don't ever like their actual coming together is not out of love. I think that Louis sees her more as a trophy, and that this was someone from like all stages, like this was someone who I wanted then. I got her, I lost her, I got her again, lost her, and then and then finally I got her again, and is not supportive at all, is super rude about the pregnancy. And then, this is where everything starts to unravel, leading up to the eventual, end of where we're going to talk about today, the explosion and the death of Anna and Mitch's unborn child, where I think part of the reason why things sort of go astray and why Mitch is able to track them in the future is, and he blames Claudia for this because, she has this morning sickness that causes Mitch to run into them on one of their surveillance routes, right? Claudia speaks French because, she's sick. That's another tip. And then, just it sort of like dives into chaos. And he blames Claudia for this and this child. And this is, again, bringing us to the idea that Louis is unhinged. He is not a normal person. He has, psycho tendencies. He actually doesn't want to get out. And I think like you can see where Rapp has this line in one chapter where I think he's on his way to, he had just like injured himself and he has to go to the doctor, but he's like, well, I really got to get out if we're going to have this baby. And in the past he said, I got to get out. But
He said it all before, but
when I was reading that chapter, I thought he truly meant it. And like, this was the time where Rapp is like, I'm going to get out.
Yeah.
And when you're reading it, it's like, wow, like that's, I don't know. I was just like, wow, that's very powerful. And I felt bad. I felt really bad for Rapp, knowing, because I knew what was going to happen in the next couple chapters, right?
Yeah. That's why I think what we're going to get to here, this kind of, we're ramping up to the key event, the explosion. It was so powerful when you first read it. I remember this book having a profound influence, and this scene, a profound influence on me as a reader. Just, whoa, that happened. Oh my God. And now on the reread, it shocked me a little less because I knew it was coming. It was still a fun read, but there was a little less on the rereading this probably the third or fourth time. Didn't have the oomph. It didn't pack the punch it did when we first lost Anna. I can now see it coming. As I was reading, I was looking for all the little foreshadowing, of which there was plenty.
Oh yeah.
So this is an incredible book, and when it's the first time reading it and you don't know the story, man, it's incredible. For me, it didn't land as hard on a reread, but that's a separate note.
Yeah, that was going to be a little bit of my hot take where, and I think as an offshoot to that, I agree with you. As an offshoot to that, I'm kind of disappointed in how this famed assassin tries to take out Mitch Rapp. In the moment, I was like, oh, wow, this is like when I first read it, but I haven't reread it in a long time. In the moment, the first time I read it, I was like, holy shit. Yeah. I didn't really see it coming. I guess I kind of did, but it was like, wow. And I remember like, I don't know, getting emotional about, even though like, I didn't eventually think critically about the books when I was reading them. I was just sort of reading them as a fan, liking them like I'm thinking about them critically now. On reread, I agree with you. I think it was a little bit, I guess one thing I can compare it to, have you read the Game of Thrones books?
Haven't read them. I mean, seen the TV show, but haven't read the books.
Okay, so you know the Red Wedding, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a scene.
Every time I've reread the Red Wedding,
it must stick. It sticks out.
It's still freaking crazy.
And it rocks you.
It does. And this to me is like that, where, it's because Vince hasn't really had this sort of like crazy out of left field turn.
No, he hasn't taken risks like he has in Consent to Kill in any of his books yet. This big. No.
But, so I agree with you. It's still very powerful, but I guess the fact that you read the novel a little bit differently. So you said, you pick up those foreshadowing things. But what I think is the big takeaway is that I think it shows that Louis is a little bit more of a, not as good as we thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
He does manage to kill Anna, and we're going to talk about in the next pod how Mitch is saved. But I wanted something more badass from Louis. I wanted, like, I don't know, looking through the rifle scope and taking Mitch out that way.
Would a long shot just let you down also, though? Like, oh, Rapp walks out of the house, goes to his car, boom, long shot, end of story. Oh, must be a great assassin. I think that could have let me down. That would have let me down even more on an initial
What about a hand-to-hand?
But why would he do it if he's that good?
True. Well, because he's crazy.
Yeah, it's true, because the thrill. Okay, you could have, or Vince could have taken that route of, he's a crazy killer. He just is in it for the hunt. He wants to go toe-to-toe. Like in the movies, when the two major characters, the good guy and the bad guy, are going to face off, one has a clear advantage, often the villain. I got the gun. I've cornered you. And then he's like, be a man, fight me. All right, toss the gun to the side and fight. You could have made it like, all right, sure, they're going to go toe-to-toe because they have to. But then that would have felt cheap. I feel like a long sniper shot would have felt cheap. The explosion on the first read is so damn good. Like, we're critiquing as you reread it and there was foreshadowing and you knew it was coming, has a little less impact. But on your first read, going toe-to-toe would have felt cheap. A sniper shot would have been boring. Setting up this explosion, and then knowing how Mitch got out of the explosion and survived, I think that lands. I just think that was great. Perfectly done. It's just kind of a bummer that it doesn't have that same flair when it's spoiled and you know it's coming.
I
think that's what we're upset about.
Because you're right. All those other things would piss us off or let us down in some way as well.
I wish I could read Consent to Kill over and over, and every time it's my first time reading it, because that is something special as a reader.
Yes.
You know,
I totally agree.
We can't have that experience, so we're griping about it.
I want that, because the first time I read it, I was like, I might have been crying. I might have been crying.
Yeah. Well, I was at the epilogue, so the crying moment for me is going to come in part 2, because I still teared up even on my fourth reading of this. So we're going to get to that next time. The ending of this book. Oh man, get ready.
It's very good.
Get ready. But Mitch survives. He walked out the back of the house, you know, right as Louis, posing as a repairman, set up all this, you know, the gas is going to be the accelerant, which is going to hit the propane. It's going to cause a secondary explosion after the first explosion to cover the evidence, you know, to burn off any evidence of who tampered with this. You know, he stopped up all the vents on the roof, the chimney vents, the other probably plumbing vents. He clogged them all up to trap the gas inside. But Mitch, eating McDonald's. You got to have that McDonald's.
Gotta have that.
Straight through the house.
Does he have a double cheese, a quarter pounder with cheese, and a Big Mac, and a fries, and a large Coke?
And
Jesus.
the Coke. I mean, right after surgery, you're going to get a little woozy, not from the drugs, but from that meal. And so he walks out onto the back patio, a split second too early for Gould's liking, and is able to survive. Just hits his head on the dock, falls into the Chesapeake. Anna, who just came out the front door, is not as lucky. And there's this interesting take of Louis simply to placate Claudia, simply to kind of say, all right, fine, we'll get extra money, you know, for covering our tracks if I do it this way. And Claudia really wants Anna alive. I don't really care, but she wants it. Maybe we can make this marriage and pregnancy work. I'll try to spare Anna. She's coming out of the house. He's like, move further from the house. I want to wait. Eventually, it detonates and Anna's killed. But Louis doesn't really have any remorse. He's only like, Claudia's not going to be happy about this. And bikes off, or takes his bike through the woods to get out of there.
We'll have to say, you know, bells or some mourning for Anna.
Part 2. Part 2 is going to be heavy.
Yeah. On the reread, we saw it coming. We could see that Vince really wanted to get Rapp sort of untangled from this relationship, which is interesting. It's in the same novel that he brings in his second, you know, love interest. We are introduced to Claudia in this novel.
Yeah.
That sort of juxtaposition of like his before and after. Although we don't see that until Kyle picks up the series.
Exactly. I was going to say that wouldn't have been Vince. But yeah, the dueling or parallel pregnancies, even with one in comes to a sad tragic ending, the fact that they were paralleled has to play a major role in Rapp's arc, and Kyle is going to do that and pull that off and see, by dovetailing and putting together these two pregnancy plots, Rapp lost his, the other one is still going to have a major impact on the course of his life, you know, years later. Well, that's the first half of this book.
It's part 1.
Let's just wrap it up here. We talked about a lot of different things throughout as we went, so let's just wrap it up. Who won? Who were the winners? Who were the losers?
I don't know. Even though I just like sort of crapped on how he took out Mitch Rapp, I think Claudia and Gould are the winners of the first half of the novel. They're pretty cool, like dynamic duo. Although we come to find out that Gould is freaking insane in the second half, or we're beginning to see that. But yeah, you know, he almost succeeds in taking out Mitch Rapp. He takes away one of Mitch Rapp's, you know, prized things in his life, or people in his life, and his unborn child. And we also see Gould in a lot of these cool spy scenes. He's very talented. And something interesting, he thinks he's Mitch Rapp's equal, but he's not Mitch Rapp's equal. So yeah, I think the winners are Claudia and Gould. And if I had to pick a loser, I don't know. Like, I guess the whole political thing is going to play bigger in the second half. So in the first half, it was sort of just there. we really, it was a little bit confusing. Although, like, I guess they're the ones who set it up. The reason we go down this whole path is the Saudis are like paying for it ultimately. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think I'll agree with you. The Goulds are developed rather well. I'm going to give the upper hand to Claudia. I think the way she plays Abel in the negotiating scene at the cafe, kind of this,
That's good.
snazzy, put together, cool, collected, confident woman in that scene. She just plays him. I was like, oh, snap. Because this Abel character we thought was so good, and he's going to hire this assassin. He's going to carry out the job, and he's so full of himself. How quickly he was torn down by the Goulds, particularly Claudia, when he was face to face with her, and she was making him sweat. So I think she came on as powerful, had a great intro, and she had that skill set, but she also had a heart. When we see her talking about, I actually like Rapp. We actually, like, why would you accept this job? We look up to him.
I know, yeah.
And not we look up to him as like, we love you protecting America, but look up to him as like, you're the best at your job. Like,
exactly.
You're able to do this job and be a good guy. They look up to.
He's one of the good guys. She says he's one of the good guys.
She even says you're one of the good guys. She looks up to that balance of an assassin who's able to, have this life. And it's kind of where Claudia wants to get to with Louis, but it's kind of doomed because of who Louis is and his baggage. One other winner for me. We get great backstory here. You mentioned the story of the Goulds and how Louis won her, even against her father's wishes. We get some backstory on Mitch. We learn a lot about him and Stephen growing up and Rapp's parents and father. I think at one point they say he was very, rough guy. He told them to suck it up. When Rapp broke his...
He was Mr. Suck It Up, yeah.
Mr. Suck It Up. When he broke his arm doing something... He didn't take him to the hospital. He's like, suck it up. And then finally Rapp's mom was like, you better get that boy some attention. It's swelling.
When his arm is like 3 times the size.
Exactly. But his dad was just going to tell him, tough it out. Well, so I that backstory, a little tidbit like that definitely helps us understand why Rapp is who he is.
A funny story. I actually did a very similar thing to that where I broke my sister's leg and...
Oh, no.
On accident, or it might have been on purpose, and I wasn't trying to break it, but I was, we were fighting, and my parents were like, suck it up, it's fine, you just sprained your leg. And then she literally broke the leg and the bone in the lower part of the leg, and had to have a cast for like a long time. And we actually went on a cruise. We were like about to go on a cruise, so she had to have a cast on the cruise. It was awful. But when I'm reading that part of the story, I thought about, oh, well, my parents told my sister to suck it up.
I think it says the Rapp's dad is the Old Testament Catholic.
Yes.
And Rapp's mom is the much softer, around the edges, forgiving Protestant or Lutheran or something, New Testament kind of way. And then, another story is when Rapp beats the shit out of the kids on the baseball diamond. Like,
for his
brother Stephen was, born prematurely, scrawny kid, way behind his age developmentally in size. He was always the brains, but Stephen was smaller in size. And he says there was an unspoken agreement that you don't touch Stephen when they play sports, right? Everyone in town, all the kids, he was the catcher, and if there was a play at the plate, he didn't have to tag him, right? Because he didn't want him in any serious injury, being smaller for his age group than the other kids. And one day, this guy named Doozer, which, by the way, there was a Doozer in Third Option.
Yeah, there was.
Who was just some brash bully who sprayed the car down with bullets. Remember that? Well, here we get a Doozer as a kid barreling through Steven as the catcher at the plate. And everyone in town knew you don't pick on the little kid like that. You don't barrel through him and knock him over. Rapp charges this dude, is smaller and 2 years younger than him. I think it's like Rapp's 11, this kid's 13 or something. And Rapp just jumps on top of him and pounds the crap out of him. And he became a legend in his town, for doing this. I just love that.
He didn't even from all his friends said that he was running and making like Indian war calls, like from right field to left field, wherever he was coming from. But yeah.
Which is kind of like whether he did or he didn't, that becomes the legend, the myth of a little Mitch Rapp. Like Vince, through this little storytelling, is giving us this mythological Mitch Rapp as a adolescent kid protecting his brother. So for me, there's another winner we didn't get to, is this level of backstory and advancing these characters particularly Mitch, nailed it in this book.
I think we've mentioned this before, but I think that's one of the best things Vince does is backstories.
Yep.
So,
all right. Well, that's part 1.
Yeah.
What are we getting to next episode, Chris?
All right. So next week we'll be finishing up our breakdown of Consent to Kill, getting into the rest of the book, our final ratings and review, and our much anticipated cover discussion. Again, we want to thank our patrons, including our special operator, Sherry F., along with our special agents, George, Matt, Dawn, Dennis, Peggy, Catherine, Ray, Bridget, and Jeff. Please, I can't say this enough, subscribe, rate, review us. We would love a 5-star review or any review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts using your favorite podcasting platform. You can check us out on MitchRappPod.com. Look at that Teespring button, order yourself a new t-shirt, or on our Twitter handle at MitchRappPod. Please, one more time, we're going to ask to subscribe to our email list, which will get you an entry into this month's book giveaway, which is a signed copy of Consent to Kill. So please go on our website and sign up for that. And as always, just let Mitch be Mitch. Just a disclaimer, this podcast is not affiliated with Vince Flynn, Kyle Mills, or Simon & Schuster, but thank you to them for bringing us the wonderful world of Rapp. And the music soundtrack is Guerrilla Tactics by Raphael Crux.